Do you know this man? The screen fades in on a close-up of a Native American face. Stern, calm, resilient. Most people don't, but his voice. His voice has echoed through countless living rooms across America. He's been on King of the Hill in historical documentaries and animated films, but Jonathan Joss. The man has a story far deeper, far more powerful and far more painful than most. No, this isn't just a story about acting. It's a story about identity silence, injustice, and unbreakable spirit-born Native American in a world that forgot his people. Joss would walk a path filled with closed doors, betrayal, cultural erasure, and one ultimate decision to use his voice to bring his ancestors back into history's spotlight. What he did shocked Hollywood and healed generations. Jonathan Joss was born in San Antonio, Texas in 1965, into a world that did not care about Native voices. He was of Comanche and White Mountain Apache descent, but when he looked around in books and TV shows and movies, there were cowboys, soldiers, presidents, but Native Americans, stereotypes, background characters, sometimes just gone even in school. His teachers taught history, like his people didn't exist past the 1800s. Jonathan didn't grow up on a reservation. He grew up in between not fully accepted by the white world and too disconnected to know his tribe's language and traditions. He felt ashamed, confused, angry. Who was he supposed to be? So he turned to the one thing he could control: his voice. He studied theater, and there on stage he found power. He could become anyone, but deep inside he knew one day he had to become himself. And that was going to be the hardest role of all. Hollywood wasn't ready for Jonathan. He was too ethnic for white roles, too urban for the few Native parts that existed, and the Native roles that did exist. He was told they don't speak, they chant, they ride horses. Jonathan was furious but focused. Then, in 1997, came the call that would change everything. King of the Hill, they wanted him to audition for a character named John Redcorn, a Native American healer, and for the first time Jonathan brought his full self into the room. His voice wasn't just powerful, it carried pain, history soul. He got the part, and for the next 13 years, John Redcorn became a voice millions heard every week. But there was a problem. He was playing a stereotype, and it began to tear at his heart. John Redcorn was supposed to be a medicine man, but on the show, he became a running joke. The mystical Indian who had an affair said little and wore feathers. Jonathan knew people laughed, but they didn't learn. They didn't see real Native culture. He was becoming the exact thing he once hated. And yet if he spoke up, if he refused the part, he might never work again. It was the ultimate trap for years. He stayed silent. He smiled in interviews, he showed up to fan events, but at night when he looked in the mirror, he didn't see an actor. He saw a betrayer, and one day he knew he had to make a choice. In 2010, Jonathan walked away. He left the show, left the spotlight. He didn't have another job lined up, but he had something more important: his integrity. He began to speak out not with anger, but with clarity. He started showing up at tribal events, film panels, and college lectures. He talked about how Native voices were erased, how Hollywood only wanted their image, not their reality, and how Native kids watching TV grew up thinking they were invisible. He wasn't trying to cancel anyone. He was trying to awaken them, and slowly it worked. Studios called producers listened, not just to cast him, but to ask for his truth. Jonathan didn't stop at acting. He began writing, consulting, advocating. He worked with Native filmmakers, helping bring authentic stories to the screen. He pushed for Native history to be told with dignity, not tragedy porn. He recorded voiceovers for PBS documentaries on Native history. This time, not as a character, but as a narrator of truth. He joined efforts to fund tribal schools, Native-owned studios, and youth theater programs. For the first time in his life, he wasn't just making noise, he was making change. And then came the moment that proved it all mattered. A young Native actor approached him after a panel, tears in his eyes because of you. He said, "I never felt ashamed of who I am." That Jonathan later said was the role he was born to play, but not everyone applauded. There were those who said he was too political. Others claimed he was ungrateful for the fame he lost, roles, lost friends. Sometimes even Native leaders criticized him for not growing up on the reservation for being too Hollywood. It hurt. He sometimes wondered if he had made a mistake. He wasn't rich, he wasn't famous anymore, but then he'd remember this wasn't about him. It was about the 7 generations to come, as his ancestors believed. If his voice could carry them forward, he could bear the weight of misunderstanding. Today, Jonathan Joss doesn't chase fame. He lives modestly, quietly. He volunteers at tribal schools, coaches young Native actors. He works on scripts that may never go mainstream, but tell real stories. He teaches young people that your voice matters, even if it shakes. Because silence, he says, is the most dangerous thing of all he believes in. Beauty, not bitterness and wisdom, not war. And though Hollywood may never fully embrace what he represents, he no longer needs them to. He has found something more powerful than spotlight: self-respect. Jonathan's story isn't just about Hollywood, it's about America. About the voices we ignore, the stories we silence, the people we erase from history until they decide to speak back. It's about the cost of fitting in and the power of finally standing tall for the 50-plus generation. Watching this, those who remember when Native people were just caricatures on Westerns. You have a choice, too, to listen to amplify, to pass down truth, not myth, to tell your children and grandchildren that America is not complete without all its voices. Jonathan Joss refused to be silent. Now it's our turn to refuse silence, too. Support Native filmmakers, read real Native history. Stop laughing at stereotypes and start asking what's behind them. Because Jonathan's voice, deep, steady, and strong, is more than a voice. It's a mirror, and it asks us all, what will you do with your voice if this story moved? You don't just watch, act, share, subscribe. Learn. Because stories like this deserve more than applause, they deserve remembrance.